Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt your regularly scheduled programming to bring you this special bulletin. As of late, the gaming industry, the video gamers, the customers, well, the potential customers, we have been inundated with one miserable excuse of a video game after another, with buggy mechanics, terrible story, boring characters, and ridiculous price tags. And yet, when gamers sit there and push their opinions out there and tell the devs what we like and what we don't like, we are shot down and insulted. And, well, it's time for you to stop celebrating the downfall of games that are just generally bad, because heaven forbid we want something that's good. At least, if you take a listen to this PC Gamer article, Tyler Wilde has something to say. Eagerness to grave dance on unpopular games has become a bad habit. No, Tyler, you want to know what's a bad habit? Unimaginative, cash grab games, boring mechanics, boring worlds, no world building, no hero's journey, no interesting characters. That is becoming the bad habit. But let's see exactly what he's got to say. Concord's low turnout, even after gamers voiced their opinion watching the trailer and saying, this doesn't look good, you might want to rethink this, and of course the devs ignoring them. That led to the low turnout. Led to the usual jubilation over the prospect of seeing a big game fail, because, ladies and gentlemen, don't ask questions, just consume product and get excited for next product. Sony hero shooter Concord launched late last week, and its Steam concurrent players haven't topped 1,000. I don't think they've topped 700. The dramatically low turnout has already earned it the title of the biggest flop of the year on social media. Well, a little bit more than social media. It's earned it's just the title in general. And if you caught any of the discussion on Reddit, TikTok, does anybody go to TikTok? Is there discussion happening on TikTok? And other platforms over the weekend, you mostly saw people gloating, posting screenshots of Steam BD concurrency charts, and tacking on a generic dunk or claiming it rules when we can all see a big game fail. No, we're celebrating a bad game failing. It has nothing to do with how big it is or how much money they spent. It's just a bad game that brings nothing to the table, nothing new to the table, with a $40 price tag in a sea of free-to-play games. So with unimaginative, uninteresting characters, a terrible color palette. So, well, I guess we just have to eat up every little bit of slop that they put out there and just, please, sir, may I have some more? That jubilation over Concord's turnout, it apparently cracked the top 50 bestsellers on PlayStation Store over the weekend because nothing else was selling, derives to some degree from an I told you so sense of justice. I'm sure it has nothing to do with one of the devs calling the critics unimaginative freaks. Can't have anything to do with that. Heaven forbid, you would think insulting the gamer, the potential customer, for having an opinion, if you don't like it, I'm sure insulting them will bring in more sales, right? Sure, that's how it works, right? The idea that out of touch, correct, creatively bankrupt executives, absolutely correct, are cynically chasing trends, 100%, and that the rest of us would have had a common sense to avoid releasing Concord, a Marvel's Avenger, a Suicide Squad, Gotham Knights, or that perplexing Gollum game. You just named a bunch of games that were either buggy, boring, had massively predatory monetization, or just a price point that didn't make any sense considering all the other games in the genre were free to play. It's not actually that easy to know why one game succeeds and another doesn't. Well, here's a clue for you. Pay attention to what your potential customers are saying. Listen to their criticism instead of insulting them and ignoring them. That's just an idea. That's how you sell a product. You showcase what you want to do and what you're trying to do. You give people a little bitty snippet of it, and then you listen to the criticism. Don't ignore it, because if you ignore it, you are pretty much you're setting the own nail up in your coffin, waiting for it to be hammered in. The devs at Firewalk Studios, many of whom are ex-Bungie, have made a game and a genre they have experience in, and they put a $40 price tag on it in a free-to-play environment. Okay, Released it without the free-to-play monetization. I think that was a mistake. Yes? No? Tell me what you think. We often complain about, well, you got to find that little happy middle ground. Don't make the monetization so predatory, at least don't make it seem so predatory. Follow suit with what Overwatch is doing, with what Valorant is doing, because those games appear to be successful, and they're free to play, and they are monetized with battle passes and cosmetics. So maybe pay attention to what's working and try to add to it instead of, I don't know, not adding to it. Putting a price tag on your game, sure, there's no monetization for it, but that's not enough to save your game. You got to add more. You got to bring more. What could they have added? I generally don't have any idea. Let's see. But concurrency numbers have, in some situations, acquired a moral quality. Oh, do tell. If you release an unpopular game, everyone is suddenly morally justified to shame and embarrass you. Yes. I mean, yeah. Maybe criticize you. Don't insult the gamers and they won't dance on your grave. That's a first step. Whether it's because all big budget games are bad, no one's saying that, you ignorant tit, or live service games are bad. Again, if done right, no one's saying that. Or you did too much. Oh, good Lord. If you did too much woke. Okay. And yes, there are quite a few people saying that. Pick one. How about you released a $40 game in an environment of free-to-play games? Okay. How about you insulted your potential customers that criticized you? How about you ignored all the criticism and continued with a game that looks generic as hell with a terrible color palette? How about that? My guess at the real reason for all this grave dancing is that it feels like a victory over FOMO. Really? You want to talk about out of touch? The grave dancing is because, well, people are tired of the slop. They're tired of the ideological nonsense, or what they see as ideological nonsense. I mean, come on, you have a robot there with pronouns. That's a massive red flag. You have, well, hideous models for your characters, and what you're pushing is weekly vignettes to give you an idea, to give you a backstory of the characters, things that most gamers, most potential customers aren't really going to care about, at least the ones you in this genre. What is it, 6v6 arena shooter? If the new $40 game sucks and no one is playing it, I can safely go back to whatever I was playing before without worrying that anyone's having fun without me. Or they'll just keep playing their little free-to-play game and not give the $40 game the time of day. Remember the one that was insulting all the criticism? Beating up on unpopular games is also a way to passively farm a satisfying sense of vindication. Oh boy. If I never paid attention to a game that fails at launch, it affirms the correctness of my judgment. Oh, you are being pretentious and talking down to your readers. This article is no better than the devs ignoring the criticism from potential customers. And the immaculacy of my taste without any effort on my part. Wow. When a struggling game has a high enough profile, as Concord does, the reasonable impulse to crack a joke about it, its Steam concurrence, gives way to that sort of thinking. No, it doesn't. It's just what people do. If your game sucks, we make fun of it. If you spent 8 years, 6 years, 4 years, whatever, if you spent that much money and that much time on a game and it comes out looking the way it does with very few maps, very few game modes, and, well, a $40 price tag, again, I keep saying this over and over again, I do firmly believe the number one issue with Concord, it's a $40 price tag in a free-to-play environment. Why on earth would anyone give Concord the time of day? Let's see, where was I? It gives way to shit-talking free-for-all that turns the developers into cartoonish corporate stooges, which they are coming across as, because you insulted and ignored the criticism that came before the game was even released. totally warps the reality of the game. Nobody cares about the reality of the game because they're not going to give the $40 price tag in a free-to-play environment the time of day. The game was showcased, the trailers came out, it was criticized, and the developers ignored it. Interesting. They never asked what I wanted. You're laughing. Sony spent $300 million, and it looks like Concord is going to be at least a $100 million loss. And on release, couldn't break 700 concurrent players, and you're laughing. Yes, we are laughing, because you didn't listen to the criticism. Battlefield 2042 became one of those dog piles back when it launched, and to make their point, its detractors started copying and pasting a giant list of features from previous Battlefield games that DICE was accused of, quote, removing, including features I don't remember. Don't remember anyone liking in the first place. I never saw anyone use Battlefield 1's fortification building system, yada, yada, yada. I don't think the mistake DICE made was Battlefield 2042 was not making a list of discrete features. The mistakes these developers are making is, again, number one, not listening to the criticism. Number two, insulting the criticism. That turns off potential customers over and over and over. You had a former dev of Concord coming out and calling the critics, what was it? Incompetent freaks? Something like that. I did a video on it. Dancing on the grave of unpopular games. No, we're going to continue to do this. When you have developers, when you have other players, shills, journalists, so-called journalist websites like this, doing nothing more than insulting any and all criticism, calling it racist, sexist, misogynist, etc. at all, then yes, we will continue to dance on the grave when you get what you deserve. But let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Leave a like, leave a dislike, do all those nifty little things that YouTubers beg you to do, and I hope to see you on the next one.